Death. Death is something that will happen to all of us. It's a guaranteed thing that never changes. Something that does change, though, is perception. You see, death and dying practices vary throughout the world and are impacted by many factors, which may include culture, religion, personal beliefs, and community traditions. Native American death rituals, for example, center on helping the spirit of the deceased individual leave their body, while using the seasons and nature to guide the overall burial process. Cuban, Puerto Rican, and Mexican funeral traditions typically include Catholic overtones and aim to honor and celebrate their deceased loved one. In Argentina, deceased loved ones are buried right away, with funerals often costing more than a wedding. Holy Mass is held on the anniversary of their passing for friends and family to attend. In Ireland, death rituals can go on for days before an individual is buried. Prior to be taken to the funeral, friends, neighbors, and family gather to share stories, sing, and pray. Chinese death rituals focus on honoring their elders, and funeral rites will depend on the age of the deceased individual, as well as their social standing. It is believed that if burial is done incorrectly, bad luck will fall upon the family. Then there's Africa. In Africa, the death and dying rituals center on becoming ancestors and the way one passes away, as well as the funeral rituals can help that transition. It's usually not common to discuss one's end-of-life wishes because they don't typically view death as an end. They believe that life goes on in another realm or reincarnation. The idea of reincarnation by most standards is pretty basic. You live, you die, and repeat. But since there hasn't been any real proof of reincarnation, does that mean it doesn't exist? Well, maybe not. You see, maybe reincarnation exists in different forms and in different ways. And that's actually what I want to analyze today. So stay tuned. I'm Chris, and you're watching Factsma. Okay, so let's start by diving a little deeper into reincarnation because there are a few more key details that make this belief much more than a get-out-of-death-free card. Okay, so although the belief in reincarnation or transmigration appears within some Buddhist and Egyptian traditions, it's actually part of Hindu doctrine or official religious law. This cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, known as samsara, describes what your soul goes through as it inhabits a body, leaves that body upon its death, then returns to earth in a new physical form. And this may come as a surprise to some people, but the goal isn't to remain in this cycle forever. According to the Hindu Temple Society of North America, when you begin a new life or incarnation, you're supposed to strive to be better than you were in the previous life. Otherwise, you'll never escape the cycle. So with all of this being said, what about evidence? Is there any evidence of reincarnation? Well, maybe not concrete, but we do have a few things that may point to something. Here's what I mean. Several years ago, studies were conducted by Ian Stevenson, chairman of the psychiatry department at the University of Virginia Medical School, who began investigating the phenomenon of young children who said they recalled a past life. Hundreds of such cases were looked into with the aim of validating if the person they remembered actually existed. After Stevenson's death in 2010, the research was continued by another psychiatrist, Jim Tucker. For nearly 15 years, Tucker has been investigating claims made by children usually between the ages of 2 and 6 years old, who say they've had past lives. The children are sometimes able to provide enough detail about those lives that their stories can be traced back to an actual person, rarely famous and often entirely unknown to the family, who died years before. So here's a breakdown of the research. 60% of the children who claim to remember past lives are male. Roughly 70% of such children remember an unnatural or violent death. The average time spent between lifetimes is 16 months. Such reports occur in children between the ages of 2 and 6, after which the phenomenon of remembering a past life wanes. Jim Tucker, one of the only scientists in the world studying the phenomenon currently, says the strength of the cases he encounters varies. Some can be easily discounted, for example, when it becomes clear that a child's statements come within a family that desperately misses a loved one. Now, of course, there were critics of Tucker's research, however. Michael Levin, director of the Center for Regenerative and Developmental Biology at Tufts University, called the research a first-rate piece of research because current scientific research models have no way to prove or debunk Tucker's findings. Even Jim Tucker himself has considered fraud in some of these cases, perhaps for financial gain or fame, but most claims usually don't lead to a movie deal, and many of the families Tucker has met, particularly in the West, are reluctant to speak publicly about their child's unusual behavior. Tucker has also considered simple childhood fantasy at play, but that still doesn't explain how the details children offer can sometimes lead back to a particular individual. But all in all, Jim Tucker believes that quantum physics indicates that our physical world may grow out of our consciousness. But consciousness is an interesting word to me as it relates to reincarnation. See, I'm thinking, could reincarnation be completely mental and we just don't know it yet? There are ways to examine this. One of the biggest ways is PLR, or past life regression. Past life regression is a form of hypnotherapy which takes an individual back through time to their previous lives or incarnations by accessing memories and experiences that are normally hidden in their subconscious mind. Pardis Partot, a medium, psychic, healer, and metaphysical coach, gave an interview with SciComm, where she described that PLR is mostly for people with chronic health issues that have no known origin, those with inexplicable phobias, as well as persistent pregnancy issues. Also beneficial for anyone having a run of bad luck who is trying to figure out what to do with their life, as well as a person interested in knowing if they have the ability to work as a healer. But can past life regression actually connect us to our past lives, our past reincarnated lives? Well, although the verdict is still up in the air, testimonies from the Sunrise Counseling Center of New York, for example, seem to suggest that PLR is nothing short of an amazing experience that seems to connect us to our past selves and shows us events that we've already experienced. Experiencing events or feeling as though we've already experienced a present situation is something a lot of people have experienced and might be a lasting clue or one of the lasting clues to reincarnation. Deja vu's meaning comes from the phrase already seen in French and occurs when we feel like a person, place, or thing is familiar to us without actually having experienced them before. This strange phenomenon happens to as much as 70% of the global population. While different people experience deja vu in different ways, the meaning behind the phenomenon remains universal. One study done by Akira O'Connor and his team at the University of St. Andrews in the UK found that deja vu occurs so that we can check our memories. In order to test the phenomenon, O'Connor and his team found a way to trigger the feeling of deja vu in the lab. To recreate the feeling of deja vu, O'Connor's team asked the participants if they had heard any words beginning with the letter S. They said they hadn't. Later, when they were asked if they had heard the word sleep, they remembered that they couldn't have, but the word still felt familiar. They report having this strange experience of deja vu, says O'Connor. The team used fMRI to do brain scans on the 21 volunteers while they experienced deja vu. The study suggested that deja vu is just a part of a healthy memory checking system, and that people who experience deja vu more often are less likely to forget the details of important events. But again, the question is, does deja vu have anything to do with reincarnation? Well, I'm not sure. You see, as we've already discussed, reincarnation is equally treated by philosophers and religious individuals as a situation in which a portion of the being can survive the death of the body. Deja vu, on the other hand, describes the psychological reaction of a subject knowing the inner certainty that one has been in that place before, one has seen or known those people before, or that recognizes the mannerisms, material artifacts, and other external elements. But then there's the spiritual side of things. I mean, it is said that all beings are souls reincarnated on planet Earth in the eternal search for evolution, and for that reason, certain memories of the past are recorded on our subtle bodies, which is the intermediate element between the material body and the soul. These memories return to the mind activated by some image, sound, smell, or sensation that sparked a direct connection that refers to that past moment or situation. So, what have we learned here? We may never know if reincarnation exists, but we do know there are reasons to suggest otherwise. But I also think we should try our best to focus on the life that we have. We should do what makes us happy, and everything else, as they say, will fall into place. Your past or past life is important to learn from. Your future is important to work towards. At the end of the day, though, the only thing that exists outside of your head is the present. But of course, what do you think?